Hey y'all, and welcome back to Sunshine and Serenity. And today we are talking about the fall garden. So, if you're new here, we are gardening in Central Arkansas, Zone 7B. And we just recently bought our very first homesteading property back in February. I actually have gardened. This is going on my third year gardening. And I've been canning for many years, even way before I gardened, and preserving my own food and things like that. So if you are new, if you will hit the like and subscribe button and leave us a comment below, let us know what you guys are up to. We are so excited that you are here. Welcome. If you are a regular viewer, we are so excited that you continue to choose to watch our videos. We greatly appreciate it, and we absolutely appreciate the support. So, fall garden. So, did you know that you can grow a fall garden? Right? So, when I started in gardening, I had no idea that you could grow a fall garden because down in the South, I'd always seen people grow their traditional spring and summer garden, and then come the fall, there is no garden. So, it wasn't until I started gardening that I learned how many things that you can grow in the fall. And I love the fall garden. One of the reasons I love the fall garden is it is so much cooler. You can actually go out and enjoy your garden, whereas right now, in the heat of the summer, we are in the triple digits many days, and it's very, very hot. So anything that gets done has to get done early in the morning or late in the evening. So you don't necessarily get to enjoy being outside, much less in your garden, right? So I enjoy the fall garden for that aspect, but I also enjoy the fall garden because it is so much more laid back. I don't have to worry near as much about pests. I don't have to worry near as much about just a lot of the headaches that come with the summer garden. Don't get me wrong, I love eating from the summer garden. I love growing a lot of things that go into the spring and summer garden. But fall is just a lot more laid back, and I can enjoy it a lot better. I also enjoy a lot of the foods that come in the fall garden, and I also really enjoy growing a lot of things that you grow in the fall garden that you can't necessarily grow in the heat of summer if you live here in the South like we do. So today I'm going to be going over the different things that I'll be growing in my fall garden. Some of the things you may have never heard about, may have never heard or eaten, but let me tell you, there is a ton that can be grown in the fall garden. So if you're ready to see what we are growing in the fall garden, let's get to it. All right, so one of the things that we are growing in the fall garden are turnips. So these are the purple top turnips. Now, so you can eat this for both the root, which is the turnip itself, and also the turnip greens. None of us like to eat the turnip greens, but I do like eating the actual turnip itself. And then a lot of the stuff that I'm growing in my fall garden, if I don't like it or we don't eat it all in a super quick amount of time, we can actually feed a lot of it to our rabbits and our chickens. So that's another upside to if you have animals growing a garden, because nothing is really going to waste because you can always feed it to the animals. So therefore, growing, it's not really being wasted. So turnips, those are one of the first things that we are growing in our garden. Another thing that I'm growing in my garden are beets. Now, I do not like beets as much as I've tried. I've tried pickling them. I just cannot get over the earthy flavor. But, so you may be asking, well, then why are you growing beets? I'm growing beets because I am growing for the purpose of dehydrating them and grinding them into a powder that I can add to various soups, stews, foods like that, to where we are getting a lot of the nutrition from beets, because beets are one of the more nutritional foods that you can eat. That way we're still getting the nutrition from it, but I'm not necessarily having to eat it in its form to where I can't take the flavor, if that makes sense. So beets, that is another thing that we are growing in our garden. Something you may not know about beets is you can actually saute and eat the beet tops, like the leaves. So it is multi-purpose. A lot of these things that you're going to be growing in the fall garden, all parts of the plant can be eaten and are edible. So that helps with the no waste aspects too. Another thing that I'm going to be putting in my garden are chives. Now, nobody likes chives really in my family except for me, but I'm growing these for the purpose that I can put them in foods and kind of disguise it, give it a good flavor. But my family is very much of the, if they don't know what's in there and they eat it and like it, as long as they can't physically see it, a lot of times they will eat a lot of things they say that they don't like. So chives, that's another thing. Now with the fall garden, a lot of you guys may not know this, but many of the things that go in the fall garden are frost tolerant. So that means that it can handle a frost. And a lot of things actually taste better once it's gone through a frost. And I'll talk about those things when we get to them. But many of your spring and summer gardens, once the frost hits, that's it. They are completely done. So most of these things you can grow through the frost, and many of them, depending on your area. Here in Arkansas, we really don't get super cold until about February is when we normally, if we're going to get snow and ice, that's usually when we get it, is in February. And so many of the things like I can grow throughout the entire winter. My thyme and my my thyme and my sage plants actually made it through our crazy winter last year. We got 18 inches of snow in February, which is unheard of for our area. We normally, if we get snow, it's usually a couple inches at the most, but we got 18 inches of snow and we got like -18, -20 degree temperatures, which is also crazy unheard of here. Usually the coldest we get is like sometimes maybe we will get into the single digits, maybe, but it's very rare. And so both my thyme and my sage plants made it through that like champs and continued growing. And so they were amazing. So a lot of these things, kale is very frost hardy. So a lot of these things, research for your area, but they will live through a frost. Okay, the next thing that I'm growing are spinaches. And I'm not going through every variety that I'm going to be growing because I have like lots of varieties of lettuce, lots of varieties of spinach, kale, those things. I'm just going through the basic vegetable itself of what I'm growing. But spinach is another thing that I really enjoy. My daughter actually, it's one of the few green vegetables that she will actually eat. Sorry, y'all, I'm hearing my chickens. It's one of the few green vegetables that she will actually eat and enjoy. So I'm growing spinach. Now, some of these things I'm going to talk about, like our bok choys and Swiss chards, when I get to them, I actually use those in conjunction with the spinach because in order to cook, when you cook this down, it takes a lot of spinach in order to have a side for a meal. So I mix in the Swiss chards and the bok choys and things like that, and it all tastes just like spinach when it's cooked down. And I use that to kind of help my spinach stretch because it does take a lot of spinach. But spinach is one of those things that I will be growing. The next thing I'm growing are lettuces. And again, I'm growing many different types of lettuce. I'm growing romaine lettuces. I'm growing heading lettuces. I'm growing many different kinds of lettuces, different colors, things like that. Lettuces are something that you can actually overwinter if you grow it in a soil bag with a tote over top of it, almost like a mini greenhouse. You can actually grow that all winter long, but you can grow this many different ways. You can grow it just one seed at a time to get your big heads of lettuce, or you can sprinkle them all super close together and use them as cutting baby greens, and it grows as cut and come again. So lettuces are another thing that we are growing. Carrots. So we are growing carrots now. I have not been super successful at growing carrots just yet. I have gotten carrots, but they haven't been really super big and long and things like that. So it's really difficult to time your window here where I live because we are so hot for so long. And even, like I said, even in the wintertime, even in December, we could be wearing short sleeve shirts. That's how warm it stays in our area. And so carrots are kind of finicky on, you have to time it just right. They don't like heat. The watering process, it's really, I would say probably one of the more challenging things to grow is carrots. And but I haven't given up yet. I am still going to continue to try to grow them, and hopefully I will get these big, beautiful carrots someday that everybody, shows on their Instagram pages and things like that. But we're going to keep trying. The next thing that I'm going to grow, which actually, let's see, there we go, which actually you can grow honestly in both hot and cool temperatures, is Swiss chard. This is one of the few greens that I could grow right now if I wanted to in the heat, as long as it's provided maybe a little bit of shade and things like that. But it will grow in both warm temperatures and cool temperatures, but I prefer to grow it in the fall. Again, I don't have a ton of garden space, so what I devote to my space, it has to be seasonal. So spring and summer garden, I can only grow spring and summer things. I don't do any of the cool weather stuff in the spring. I always do all of that in the fall garden. But you could grow it if you wanted to in a warmer temperature as well. Kales. So kales is another thing that I'm going to be growing this year. This is my favorite, is the blue curl. This is the dwarf blue curl, but I like the blue curled Scotch kale. It's my favorite out of all the kales, but I am going to be growing both dinosaur kale and scarlet kale as well, mainly for the fact that I can feed it to my rabbits, and we can not have to feed as much pellets and hay and things like that in the fall and winter time. So most of your leafy greens that rabbits love to eat, that's a fall thing, right? So kale, that's another thing that we are going to grow. Let's see what else we got in here. We already talked about... Oh, no, we haven't talked about these. Radishes. So, radishes are another thing that I'm going to grow, and these are super quick turnaround. So, these are like 30 days. Some of these are, the watermelon radish is 60 days, but a lot of your radishes are like 20 and 30 day varieties, and so they're super quick turnaround. So, the way that I do these in the fall in winter garden is I will succession sow them. So, I will sow a group of radishes, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I'll grow another group of radishes. And that way, I'm always harvesting radishes. You don't want to sow 60 radishes at the same time and then have to figure out what am I going to do with 60 radishes, because there's really not a way to long-term store the radishes. So they're kind of more of a fresh eating thing, and a lot of the stuff in the fall garden you will find are more fresh eating options, not necessarily long-term storage like much of your spring and summer garden is. And a lot of your root crops will actually overwinter, meaning that you can actually, like your carrots and things, you can actually keep those in the ground even through the winter, and even if you get snow and things like that. It may kill back the tops of your carrots, but that dirt essentially acts as a type of cold storage system, so to speak. So it's a good way to store your root crops if you don't have something like a cold storage or a cellar or things like that to keep your stuff fresh. You can't overwinter it like that. Something else that I'm going to be doing, which really isn't a fall garden thing, it's a spring and summer, early spring thing, is onions, and I'm growing them from seed this time. I grew them from seed several years ago, and they did amazing. I grew from sets and onion sprouts last year, and while I did get onions, they were not just overly huge onions. So I'm going to try doing it from seed again and just see if that was a fluke or if they actually really do outperform the sets. So I'm going to try them from seed again. All right, let's see. These are more radishes. What else do we have? I'm growing your herbs like thyme, oregano, sage, those things that can take a frost. So I'm going to be growing some of those. We talked about turnips. Let's see. I think these are all carrots. All right, so kohlrabi. Kohlrabi. Excuse me, guys. Kohlrabi is a vegetable that you may not have necessarily heard of. It is it's not a root crop, it's an above crop, and it gets like this little ball on it, and it sprouts all these leaves, and this is actually what you will eat of the vegetable. And it actually is a really good potato substitute. A lot of people like it for substituting for their potatoes, but I have both green and purple varieties that I'll be growing, and it actually was one of my favorites. Even the kids liked it, so we will be growing that. Let's see what else we got in here. I think we've talked about most things. Something that we are also going to be growing is rutabagas. These are also another really good potato substitute. I love rutabagas. I think for the most part, I am going to be doing a couple of flowers. So I'm going to be doing calendulas because they do like cool temperatures, and I'm going to be growing those to use for skincare and various things like that. They like cooler weather. They're not a warm weather. They don't handle a lot of good warm weather. So I'm going to grow those. I'm also doing cauliflower. I'm doing several different kinds of cauliflower. I'm doing white. I'm doing purple cauliflower. And the last things I'm doing, I'm actually doing some microgreens and also some broccolis. And I'm growing collards and mustard greens. We don't like collards and mustard greens, but I am growing them for my rabbits. Okay, so that is what we are growing in our fall garden this year. Again, I love the fall garden. I think one of the things I didn't mention, which I didn't pull out of here, which I just thought about because I was going through in my head what we're going to be growing, but peas. So we're also going to be growing green peas, shelling peas. They're my son's favorite vegetable. He absolutely loves them, so I'm growing many different types of shelling peas as well. So yeah, so there's a ton of stuff that you can grow in your garden that you may not have thought about. All kinds of really cool things. Bok choy is another one that I didn't mention that I'll be growing several varieties of bok choys. But there's so many things that you can grow, and it's so, like I said, so much more laid back because you're not dealing with a lot of the pest pressure that you deal with during the spring and summer garden. It's just more, it's more relaxing because it's, you know, getting into that cooler time. So I highly encourage, if you do not normally grow a fall garden, try growing a fall garden this year. If you got frustrated with the spring and summer garden because of the heat and the drought and the bugs, and you just feel like, you know, you just threw in the towel, you're like, I can't do this. I encourage you, reset, take a break, take a breath, reset, and gear up and do a fall garden, because I promise you it is a lot less work than the spring and summer garden. Overall, I enjoy the fall garden process much more than I do the spring and summer garden. Although I do enjoy many of the things that grow in the spring and summer garden, and many of those things are storage crops, like your tomatoes you can store long term, you know, can those things, green beans, corn, things like that. Whereas your fall garden is more of a fresh eating garden. But I highly encourage you, grow a fall garden because it is, I love it. So I highly encourage you to do that. But as always, thank y'all for hanging out with me. Thank you for supporting us in our channel on our journey. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys. And yeah, so I'm going to be doing in the month of August coming up, we're going to be doing the Every Little Bit Challenge, Every Little Bit Counts Challenge, which was started by 3 Year Overs Homestead, which is just every day trying to preserve something, whether it's you know, canning or dehydrating or throwing something in the freezer. Just trying to do a little bit each day so that it's more manageable, especially with the garden harvest coming in. We're still getting tomatoes, we're still getting peppers, I'm still getting beans, and so yeah, so I will be filming what I do each day during the week, and then it'll be kind of a weekly recap on my videos each week of what I preserved and harvested that week. And then at the end of August, whenever I go to rip out a lot of my summer things and gear up for the fall garden, I will let you guys know what my favorite tomato varieties that I grew, what my favorite pepper varieties I grew, what did well for us, what did not do well for us, and what we will and will not grow again next year. So stay tuned for that. But as always, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope y'all have a blessed week, and until I see you guys next time, bye friends.